Check it out. I got this fresh batch of brand new investors. They're here so that I can teach them how to become really good, successful investors instead of really bad investors. Hey guys. This keeps happening. Bad investors are petrified investors, and these guys, most certainly petrified. So today we're gonna talk about how to not get stuck, analysis paralysis, when right now the world is your oyster and there's never been a better time to invest successfully.
One shot, now the future is yours. Go! I'm turning dreams into reality. Yeah. It's one shot, now the future is yours. Go!
So today we're going to be talking about the differences between the worst and the best investors. And you know what? For school this week, I took my kids on the private jet to go to a petrified forest. And I cannot help but think that there's a huge analogy here between most people who don't really know how to invest. They get stuck, analysis paralysis, and they look more like the petrified forest that we visited that day. So I didn't know this, but a petrified forest is known for its colorful petrified wood. We actually saw that in person. This is formed when running groundwater slowly replaces the original tree matter with inorganic material over millions of years. The result is a fossil that resembles the cellular structure of bark and wood. But make no mistake, it's actually a stone. And every week we take the jet somewhere in the world with my kids because that's where my wife and I say, we don't want you to just learn from textbooks. Let's get tactile, let's get hands-on, let's actually see the world instead of just reading about it. And as I was out there, I was just thinking, this petrified wood is not very different than most investors, meaning society's game plan is to put money in a 401k or an IRA, maybe put a little bit of money into gold and silver, just get your house paid off. And as time passes and your accounts aren't growing as aggressively as you need, even after you've worked so hard, guess what happens? People start getting that paralysis analysis. They don't know what to do. It's like deer in the headlights, and they freeze because they don't know how to fix this broken financial situation.
Did he freeze?
Like an antelope in headlights.
Petrified investor, what do I mean by that? Well, think about it this way. A person who is acted upon and waits when they're supposed to be out there buying, they're not working with cycles. Right now, look at this. Inflation is super high. We are missing millions of homes in America, and as a result, real estate makes more sense to buy right now than ever before, but people don't know how to get their hands on the right product. Meanwhile, the stock market is 3 years overdue for its correction, and we've seen a little bit what's happening there. This economy is only going to get shakier with what's happening between Russia and Ukraine, and you have all these market forces, and guess what happens when there's uncertainty in the world? People get petrified. They stop moving. And yet the weird thing is, the people that get wealthier are the people that understand this is the time to actually move instead of getting stuck. Obstacles and unexpected difficulties persuade most people who are petrified investors to give up rather than double down and actually move forward. And these are things you can't afford to miss out on. These are things that you have to start acting on right now. So at the end of this video, I'm going to tee it all up. I'm going to show you what you need to focus on. See, the problem is you have investors that know how to make money and they're thinking of positive arbitrage. How do I take something that is earning me a low yield and trade it for something earning me a high yield? Then you have the consumer that thinks they're an investor because, well, they've got their money in 401ks and IRAs, but the truth is financially, they're not on a growth curve that will give them enough money at retirement. So hopefully that helps you kind of identify for yourself, like, am I acting more like an investor or more like a consumer? This will help you though really know whether you're a petrified investor. Are you making decisions based on fear? For example, I had one of my buddies who reached out and said, Kris, I've got $3 million in the stock market. And like, do you think with what just happened in the market, it's gone down 3%, do you think I should pull money out? And I'm like, well, first of all, a strategy should never be dictated by fear, so that means that you're definitely a petrified investor. Also, if you take a low risk or low reward approach, there's a lot of people who are like, well, listen, I am not going to take my hard-earned money and try to earn high returns on it. I don't want high ROI. I'm assuming that that'll equal high risk. So what do I do instead? I'm more like the ostrich. I bury my head in the sand. I wave the big fat meaty part for the tiger to come out and freaking leap on it and roar, tear into me. And so instead of actually growing your money, it can't. Because you're too focused on treasury bills and S&P 500s and things that are single digit ROI. Also, if you believe it's too good to be true, then it has to be, which you're never gonna fit in my world. By the way, if you don't believe that's necessarily true, you should subscribe right now, because on this channel, I'm always exposing all of the opportunities out there that society would say, oh, that's too good to be true. And I'm like, yeah, but if it doesn't make me rich in 5 years, I'm not interested in it because it's too slow. It means that your growth curve is gonna be so minor that you're guaranteed to fail. I'd rather have a shot at winning rather than a guarantee of failure. And by the way, I'm not dumb enough to put all my eggs in one basket, right? There's rules to how you do this responsibly to take calculated risks. Additionally, you might be a petrified investor if you're content with the options that society has made available to you, because these people are saying, give me your money, let me manage it. I'm gonna earn money on it whether the market goes up or down, so you can lose and I can still win, but when you win, I win the same. So guess what? I'm going to invite you to do that because I'm gonna make money either way. Do you really think that that makes sense, as opposed to someone who's a fiduciary, meaning a person that says, listen, whether you win or lose, I'm unaffected. I'm completely out of the market. There's no side deals here. My job is to make sure that you're being smart and that you're educated and that you know your options. And finally, a petrified investor waits and they do research and they check out those opportunities until they have literally passed them by. Do you realize right now that 2 years ago, that real estate went up 16% in a single year? It did double digits again this last year. It's doing double digits again this year. And until we get the shortage on millions of homes corrected in the United States, that this is likely going to continue. In fact, I'm predicting that the national median, as sad as it sounds, that has recently gone from 250,000 to over 360,000 will continue going up until it probably passes $500,000. So in the last 2 years, what have you done about it? Have you gotten in the game? Are you doing what the wealthy are doing? Are you following their moves? Are you putting your money where they're putting their money, AKA real estate, Blackstone, hedge funds, the people that are controlling some of the world's greatest wealth on the planet? You know, Blackstone, they're controlling $9 trillion worth of money. That means that in terms of GDP, they're more powerful than every country on the planet, save two. Think about that for just a moment. Are you doing what the wealthy are doing, or are you still doing what society has teed up for you? If that's the case, if you meet any one of these, there's a chance that you're petrified. And here's the sad thing. While we're sitting in a lot of turbulence, this is where you have maximum opportunity. Maximum problems always create an opportunity for maximum solutions. Maximum solutions always provide maximum profit. In other words, you can help fix this mess. There is profit for you to earn, but if you're really just going to sit back and do nothing, I'm just telling you right now, you're missing out on the most powerful financial decade based on the fourth turning Kondratiev cycle that we will see probably for the next 80 years. Now listen, we didn't just go out there and see this petrified forest. We saw something entirely different near Flagstaff in Arizona. You know what we saw? We saw a huge preserved crater that was made 49,000 years ago. And I was stunned to find out that even though the crater was like a mile across, it was only an asteroid that was 150 feet across that actually made that huge pit. Literally, it was traveling at it was something crazy, like 29,000 miles per hour. And when it struck the ground, it made impact and made this huge dynamic pit and changed the landscape of the earth. And there's a different analogy financially for what that can do to you. So Meteor Crater lies east of Flagstaff and measures approximately 5,000 feet in diameter, 560 feet deep. And this crater was the result of a dynamic impact from a nickel iron meteorite only 150 feet across. Similarly, a small investment with the right ROI can have a dynamic impact on your portfolio. Come on, you should have seen through the years when people are like, oh, imagine if you had just saved $400 a month every month for 8 years and then just let it grow at 10%, and then when you retire, it's worth millions of dollars. And what they're doing is they're trying to inform you on the power of compound interest, especially when you're able to hit a double-digit ROI. When I bought my very first house, I had no idea that something so small would lead to something so crazy, like the jet that I flew in last week with my family. Like this house, I bought about $40,000 below market, same thing that people are capable of doing even in today's market. I lived there for 2 years. And while I rented out the basement, that basement income basically covered my mortgage. Now, that first move that happened with this dynamic investment is I basically brought in enough money from that basement to eliminate my biggest expense. Think about that for just a moment. A year into that property, I was able to go back to the bank and get a home equity line of credit. They said, well, the house has gone up in value, you've got equity. This might be your situation if you own a home right now. So they gave me this line of credit and I use it as a down payment on the second property. Now, I didn't move into this house. It was nicer, it was bigger. I did a lease option. That means kind of like a rent to own where I helped the family get into it. And not only did I get that property at a discount, but the family gave me several $1,000s as a down payment. Every month after paying the mortgage, there was $600 a month left over. So first house I'm living for free, second house I'm getting paid $600 a month. And after 3 months of that was when my wife said, wait a second, Kris, light bulb's going on. What if we did this again and again and again? I was shocked because she was that petrified investor. She was scared to support me, but she couldn't deny the fact that we had eliminated our biggest expense and we had $600 extra a month, and she was using it to rapidly get us out of credit card debt. So when she suggested that we should do this again, I knew I had her support. She had shifted from a petrified investor to becoming a dynamic investor, someone that realizes that small things can turn into really powerful things over time. Less than 4 years later, we were financially free. Literally, I quit my job. I didn't need that anymore. I had just graduated college. And that year I doubled my portfolio again. The year after I doubled it again, 100 homes became hundreds of homes and then thousands of homes. And something small became something really, really powerful. And I want to ask you, have you made a single financial decision in your life that has a dynamic to it where something small can become something really massive? Because if you haven't, pay attention. A dynamic investor sees the world differently. Number one, they're constantly looking for new opportunities. That doesn't mean they're going to act on all of them, but if you look at enough, you're going to tell the difference between the good ones and the bad ones. Also, they base decisions on potential upside rather than loss aversion. Instead of like, well, shoot, just imagine all the what if scenarios and let's worry and think about the things that we could lose and the stress we're going to feel. I'm like, that will make you a petrified investor. Instead, you got to start saying, what can we gain if we take a calculated risk? Number three, you have to find too good to be true investments with asymmetric risk. Asymmetric risk means low downside, high upside. For example, this 10 grand. Let's say I put it on a deal. It's this house right here. And the worst thing that can happen is I lose all $10,000. That is a known downside. But what if the upside is to make $50,000? If there was no asymmetry, if they were symmetric, it would be I could lose all my money or I could double my money. Right? But the upside in real estate is significantly bigger than that. Same thing in business, same thing in other investments that I look at. In fact, my world today, it's typical for me to earn double-digit investments of 25% of my money every year, 50%, often 100%, sometimes hundreds of percents. Why? Because I'm a dynamic investor, and that's because too good to be true. This is an adage that poor people, broken and hurt people say that have been financially hurt, and they want to protect themselves from getting hurt again when what they really have to do is double down. And finally, a dynamic investor establishes investment standards so that they can act quickly when necessary. Just this morning, I was with my mastermind and I said, raise your hand if you own a home. A bunch of hands went up. I said, okay, now raise your hand if your home has gone up in value. Most of the hands went up. I said, so if you have home equity, raise your hand if you have a home equity line of credit. Almost no hand went up. I said, listen, do you know what a home equity line of credit is? That's where you go to the bank and say, my house is worth $400,000, maybe I owe $200,000 on it. A bank will go up to 80% of the value. Maybe that's $340,000. There's $140,000 of a line of credit. Now you don't have to take it. You don't have to make payments. It just means that it's available so that if you wanted to use it, then you'd have some cheap payments at start, but then you could actually do something by being in the game. And I'm going to tell you right now that a dynamic investor, they position themselves so they can be ready. Even if you're watching this video and you got no money, that's okay. I got in the game of real estate with less than $5,000, something today you can actually still do. The principle, however, is sound. Establish your standards. Start looking at multiple deals. Start believing that too good to be true actually is out there, because that's what I invest in literally every single day. And it's a matter of basically saying, I'm going to master the game of finance so I can start seeing the real opportunities that are out there, so I can do something dynamic and powerful, like a meteor that hits a crater and creates this massive explosion. Your finances can do that with just the right financial moves. Let me show you how. So let's talk about the game of real estate, because frankly, you might be watching my channel for what I do in franchises, what I do in business or other areas, or how I make money in different ways. But in the game of real estate, try this on. You have to be dynamic if you want to be fast-paced. This comes from Zillow. It says the national average for days that a house is on the market currently is 28 days. But in some of these hot markets like Columbus, Denver, the average is only 8 to 9 days. Investors who are not able to act quickly will fail in today's age of speed, because that's what technology has done. You got to be educated, you got to be fast. It might mean that you need a mentor, a business partner, or someone that knows the ropes. This isn't their first rodeo. They've done it a time or two, or maybe 5,000 times. And that's going to be really key if you want to win in this fast-paced economy. So here's my question for you. Are you ready to become a successful dynamic investor instead of being petrified by the market? Because I think that our politicians all over the world are conspiring in one way. Let's keep everyone confused and on their toes and maybe doing a whole lot of nothing. But I'm telling you that unfortunately the rich are going to get richer. They're taking a look at inflation, they're taking a look at the dynamics, and they're saying, wow, this is an even easier money-making market than ever before. Now listen, if you have $50,000 sitting in a 401k, an IRA, savings, in a business, or even just equity in your home, did you know that I can show you how to multiply this dramatically? In the next 5 years, inflation literally could erode half of this money. But instead, what if you could grow at 500% in the next 5 years? Well, I'm telling you, it's not only possible, I'm doing it many times over, and I'm not even saying that that's a high standard. Well, I can't make earnings claims or guarantees or promises. What I can tell you is that there is a link below this video, and if you want to learn about partnering with me, I'm in the hottest markets, doing some of the hottest investing, making some of the very best money that is out there to be made. I got a team of experts. This is what we do all day long. Don't be petrified. Get dynamic. Start winning. If you got some money that you could put to better use, or you want to learn about it, then take action right now. Click that link below and start learning what partnering with me could look like so that we can win together. Come on, Kris. This is the first video of yours I've ever watched. What do you mean you've done 5,000 projects totaling over $1 billion? Well, would you like to see my first properties? I talked about them in this video a little bit, but if you click this video, I'm going to take my CEO on a ride in a limo. We're going to check out some of these houses so that you can actually witness the birth of my wealth journey. I'm really petrified. Hello? Hello? Yeah, see, this isn't going to work. Right now I feel like I got to redo the take because now I know what I want to say.